You are listening to Level Up Your Gaming Podcast, Episode 28, Creating a Collaborative Universe, Part 2. Today we continue talking about creating a collaborative universe with your friends. We provide you some tools and tips for how to execute this world-building experience. If you'd like to participate in the discussion or leave us feedback, you can contact us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com. Also, if you like the show, please subscribe, leave us a review, or tell a friend. Now sit back and enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Level Up Your Gaming Podcast. My name is Aaron, and across from me, again in the flesh, because we're recording here on the same day, Jared.
We're taking advantage of every opportunity to get together, and so we're maximizing our time.
You're getting two podcasts in this day.
Yep.
So it might have the most current events relevance to what happens 2 weeks from now, but I think it's okay because the world's kind of all over the place.
Unless something major happens.
Unless something major happens, which it could. But, maybe I'll stick that in the front of this podcast. With that.
There we go. Aaron will do a current events update. Jared is heading down to Georgia.
Jared's on his way down to Georgia. Jared's probably already on his way down to Georgia once this podcast hits the air.
Yeah, I'll already be down there.
Yeah. That's very true. I think that
That's weird. You guys, so time thing. Our listeners are listening to us in the past talking about the future, which is for certain. Weird. Whoa. I love time. Does that mean the past is alive? Are we alive?
Also, probably coming up in another week, I think we're going to have another break for a week. I'm going to be going on a vacation, so
outstanding.
Putting that one out there.
What state you going to? Or are you staying in state?
No, we're going to go to visit my brother. He lives in Alabama, so we're going to go to Tennessee, Knoxville, Smoky Mountains.
I know exactly where that is. I've driven through it.
Chattanooga, and then we're going to go visit him. He lives in Huntsville. So,
well, if you just want to break south from Chattanooga, you can come visit me at work.
You're really south.
No, I'm like an hour and a half from Chattanooga.
An hour and a half from Chattanooga?
Yeah, I think it was the last hour and a half, 2 hours of the drive when I drove down there.
I thought you were south of Atlanta, where you're going to be.
We're north of Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
So we're about an hour or two north of Atlanta.
Maybe we'll play it by ear.
I'm
just joking.
I'm going to be sitting in a Hyatt. Hi, Jared. Hi. You guys want to go out to dinner? Oh, wait, everything's closed. We can eat in my hotel room.
But we're going to continue the topic from the last week's episode, which was collaborative storytelling. And last week we kind of talked about the overall minutia of it, how it kind of works, and the philosophy of it. And we didn't really get into any of the tools, which are a really big thing here, and Jared loves the tools, which is we want to be able to give you some concrete examples of how to make this work, okay? We haven't been doing it for very long, so our toolbox is a little limited, but we're going to try to give you as many tools as we can to make this a good experience before we start philosophizing on it again some more.
Okay, so I am going to divide this into a little bit more tech-friendly and a little bit less tech-friendly. So, for example, some of you guys might not have the options out there for a great amount of technology. Some of you might have those options. So I'm going to start off with the tech options because that's currently what we're using. I mean, no duh, Aaron and I both work in the tech sector, so.
Technology, woo!
Woo! Technology. With technology, how we have been so successful, one of the first things is the capability to share and to alter and to discuss technically within the confines of a document. So what we utilize is actually Google Drive with Google Docs. Now, to set up Google as a platform for sharing, all you need is a Google account. It's free, and you get Docs for free, and you get Google Drive for free. So you go into Google Drive, you create your document, and then you share it with other individuals. There's plenty of tutorials online if you need some assistance with that. I mean, there's multiple. So creating the baseline document, sort of foundations in development. So what you need to do is you create the document. You might decide on colors of texts. Also helps organize thoughts. So, Aaron might choose blue. I might choose green. Green's my favorite color in case anyone's wondering. It is. I don't wear it. I wear mostly like blues and grays, but I love green. So, away from that was a tangent. Holy shit. Holy shit. I'm sorry, listeners. My favorite
You now know more about Jared than you probably wanted to know.
Than you probably wanted to know. I also like long walks on the beach. So, Google Docs is great. So while I'm typing, if Aaron starts typing, I can actually see what he is typing. You literally can almost text message each other over Google Docs. So what I have created a developmental document. So just development, ideas, brainstorming, the wild hares, that we're chasing. Next is you can create folders inside each one. So like, for example, I created a document and sticking with docs, I created an NPC repository where I'd enter in my descriptions of all my NPCs, so they can be easily copied and pasted into somebody else's game, and so Aaron never has to ask me for a description. Third, I put in my writings. So I call it the extended writing document. So I dump that into the Google, a separate Google Doc. And so Aaron can reread anything that I wrote, or if Aaron wrote something, he can put it in there. And then there's the folders. So the folders will help you musically. So, for example, now unfortunately Google Drive does have some limited space, but you can do a flash drive. There's other ways to increase the size. You can also buy more size if you have the resources available. So one of the things that I do is I actually take all my MP3 MP4, MP4A.
MP3s are music. MP3s are music.
All right, see, this is why I have Aaron. Tech sector. He's the actual tech guy. I just teach about.
Jared doesn't know the format of how anything comes out. He just knows it makes sound.
It makes sound, and this is how you play the sound. And let me build you like a whole presentation on how to do that.
Jared can train you how to use it. I can put it together.
Aaron can actually make it. So I place the MP3s in there, and that helps us with sound consistency and music consistency, and Aaron can take those. Now, unfortunately, Roll20 does have a limitation. You can't share music, unfortunately. It's difficult. It used to have that capability, and I loved it, because I just marked everything like The Crew, Dash, and like Aaron could look up my playlist and just boom, 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 take them all.
Well, yeah, because it used to be connected with
SoundCloud.
SoundCloud, yeah. So but SoundCloud died, so they had to get rid of the jukebox. But yeah, so Jared could upload anything into SoundCloud, and so he said, I think everything was prefixed Illinois Crew, and then you had the genre, and then you gave us the actual story, the actual track name that you wanted to give it, which was nice. So because for the longest time, I mean, your computer here has all the music that we ever used, and it's got a lot of tracks that are iconic to what our games were and what they are.
I'm slowly rebuilding that.
It's tough to rebuild that. And so if anybody knows of a shared resource for music, please let us know. We'd love to have that plays online and everyone can listen to it at the same time.
That'd be great.
That'd be awesome.
Oh my God, I would cry. I'd be so happy. If you want to hear me cry because I'm so happy, please let us know. So that's currently how we're sharing music. It can also be shared on a flash drive. So, Aaron can update his, I can update mine whenever we do that. So the shared folders are fantastic. So you can still unshare a folder inside of your Google Drive. So you can still have like your little private storylines, but they're still all in the same folder because I have obsessive compulsive disorders, so I have to have that organization in my life.
I was gonna say Jared has problems, but he decided to name the problem.
Oh, I mean, like I said, might as well let the listeners know. They're talking to a crazy man.
Well,
Medicated.
This is one of the things that actually makes you a very good storyteller, mind you.
It is. I see. There's both curses to my obsessive compulsive disorder, but there are also blessings.
Yes.
I am highly organized. And that is really the key to the toolbox, is organizing your information in a way that's easy for everyone. And I do mean everyone who's participating to look through and add to. So if you're like, oh man, this was hard for me as a person with OCD. Like, I have to be okay that if Aaron puts something in an 11 sized font, or 12, because I generally do 11, it's okay. The world's not going to end. So you got to be okay with that. You got to be okay with the some of the fonts, some of the sizes not matching, but you need to create an organizational structure that everyone can follow.
I mean, that shared document there and the shared drive is key, because we have house rules that are in there, and it's really key. If you have the access to the technology, it is just so helpful to be able to write down and make sure everybody has access to it. Any storyteller that's going to come into your group has access to it. It's just very easy to share that information. And right now, in today's day and age, in the last 5 months, people are looking for ways to do this sort of game online collaboratively, or in any way, and that's a good way to share information with your players.
Yep. So there is that's the tools that we currently use to share and collaborate. The next thing is that so also I'm going to break into the next form that we use to share and collaborate that we currently use. So Aaron and I typically get together before game to do our podcast, but we tend to take a little bit to just talk. I mean, it's nice to catch up, and we catch up, but we also talk game stuff, and so it's setting up a regular time, not even a regular. I mean, and nowadays you can merge phone calls on an iPhone. You don't need spiffy conference call stuff. Maybe everyone just gets together an hour before game, and you guys all have dinner together and talk about where you want to go with your each individual stories. It's just some way of communicating with one another. You need to set up a point where you can look face to face or via computer screen and discuss that. Now, this way, because I had put some thought into people who don't have the available resources and access. Maybe you're starting off in game, and right now you're of a younger age, and you don't have the money to buy a nice computer and stuff like that. A shared notebook. A shared notebook will do. Here's the actual physical concrete tool I want to give you. Because things can get messy inside a notebook. You're like, oh my God, was that on page 32 or page 33? And so what I do is I will move forward in the notebook, but on the back side, and this is actually a long time ago that I did this, when I used to create notebooks for all my games before I had access to the resources. I would actually write a table of contents in the back of the notebook. The table of contents, technically you were going backwards in the notebook, but it was very helpful for organization, so I could find things quick. So, you just label it appropriately. NPC, George Yassin. New land, Tarava, house rule, interrogation techniques. And you just label them in your notebook as you go along if you don't have access to that. And then when somebody else decides to start storytelling, hand that notebook off. So they've got all the keys to build their stuff. Because the thing is now, mind you shouldn't be writing your personal games in that notebook, because that notebook needs to be shared. You don't want to give them all your
any shared resource. Obviously, you don't want to be in a position where you're going to share someone information that you don't want them to have, because it's integral to your game. So make sure that you, like Jared said, if you're going to hide your folders in the same drive, make sure that they're hidden appropriately.
Make sure that you unshare them.
Yes, make sure everything is set to the correct permission level if you're using technology. And if you're not using technology, don't write personal stuff in the shared notebook.
See, isn't it great when he uses the right permission levels? Just wait. Say user role.
User role.
Because he's the one who builds crap. I'm the one who just explains it, and explains it poorly. I have so many developers who are like, that's not what I did. And I'm like, I have to explain it to an audience whose education level is about some college. So they don't understand what an MRS data backwards formatting file is. It's software. They're like, it's actually not technically software. It's just code. No. No.
Go home.
Go home. Let me handle the education. Okay? I'm not teaching a college course on this crap. I'm going to give them the basics. So the shared notebook is a great tool to do that. It's low tech. It's helpful, and it's a little nostalgic. To be perfectly honest, it brings me back to days where we used to notebooks and folders. And
I mean, I still write stuff in notebooks. I obviously don't share this stuff with you, but I like to. For some reason, when I start putting games together, I always like to put the pen to paper first before I go into the online.
Tippity tappity tippity tappity tippity tap. It's kind of funny because you are like the true tech guy,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm more the teacher. You're the one who likes paper and pen. I'm the one who tippity type, tippity type, tippity type.
You know, this is the same thing at work. When I actually write to-do lists, I write them on paper. Because if I write them, I remember them.
Freak.
If I write them, I remember them. If I type them, I don't remember them.
If I write them down there lost in a notebook somewhere, I create a calendar of events.
They literally say, like, I'll say, like, to-do Monday, and I'll have, like, bullet points.
Yeah, that's why I have a phone with a notes section.
Sorry, I'm weird like that. I just, like, if it's on paper, it makes sense.
I'm sorry, it's good. It's I love life. Life is awesome because it's so chaotic. So there's really good tools that you can utilize to keep that shared communication going, to maintain or to create a good foundation for your game, where that foundation is sort of solidified, and information that needs to be solidified can be kept, shared, and read by everyone. Now, the next thing we wanted to go into, and I think Aaron's going to speak more to this point, is going to be transition between games. Because that is a cool and delicate process.
Yeah, so I mean, when you're trying to transition between the two games, first of all, you have to establish the theme at which your collaborative universe is going to exist. Okay, so the key to your transition is how the theme of your collaborative universe exists. So in our world, we started our collaborative universe using mortal investigators. Okay, that I specifically had the players build how they know each other, but they were all PIs, okay, or they were all contacts or confidants of the PIs to work together. And so they all brought a skill to the table, and the good thing about it is that I, as the GM who started the game, was able to create a player in the next game when Jared ran his game, and that player had connection to the PI world. So Jared and Ken decided that they were going to be the owners of a private investigation firm, and the rest of the players were basically all confidants, and my player ended up also being hired on as a lawyer to assist with the matters of the investigators. And that spawned the game. So when one person was not available, okay, it was always explainable that person was working on another case or
it was great
on vacation. It was very easy.
Fantastic because it was because we were a private investigation firm, there are just stereotypical investigations like insurance fraud. Is my wife cheating on me? That you can do.
Yes.
So it was very, and with Aaron's character, because his character was a lawyer, it was even better because he'd just be like, he's working on a big case. He's defending your lawsuit from the last game. That person that you handcuffed? Well, they are pressing kidnapping charges.
So it's very easy. So I mean, your players, because every story that you're going to tell is going to be a micro story, your players at the end of it either end up back at a hub, or they end up back at a town or something. So it should be easy for you to transition players in and out, because when the next storyteller goes up, their character obviously can't participate, or their character is always driving the wagon and isn't participating, okay, or their character is always wrangling the horses and not participating. However you want it to be as your band of merry fellows carry on throughout the world. Or if your next GM decides to move your players into a completely different location. And so this is kind of it. Basically, wherever you end up moving your players, the GM who has a character, you need to preoccupy the character. Okay, that's part of the transition. Okay, it doesn't need to really be explained, but the character always needs to be preoccupied. The second thing that you need to do is that the other game has to end. Okay, you can't begin a new game if the other game hasn't ended, meaning the story is over, and I don't need to explain the transition into the new story. Okay, I don't need to explain it in the sense of I need to get you from point A to point B. I can say you start at point B, and I can give you the narrative. Okay, and I think that's probably the best way to transition players in a fantasy setting where you might have them traverse long bouts of land. Okay, so you pick a forward point in time. So we're in March. Your game is in March. The next game cannot start until April because your players must heal. Okay, your players must travel distance. Your players must deal with life.
And this is fantastic because it does give opportunity for the players or the group to have some background stuff that's going on. Because, like, for example, a lot of times jobs, stereotypical stuff like house repair, doesn't get addressed. Because let's admit it, it's boring. It's no one wants to do. Okay, there are some players out there that are like, I make sure my house is cleaned, and I make sure I fix that leaky roof. And you're like, oh my god, you texted me over this at 3 o'clock in the morning? Okay, yep, your house is looking fine. Like, I had one player who had, when I was LARPing, he had located a snake. They thought it was a were snake. Turned out it wasn't a were snake. It was one of my red herring stories, where it was just a very exotic snake that had escaped from a zoo. Yeah, every week that person had told me that he fed and watered the snake. I was like, holy crap, dude, don't care. No. Like, he wasn't even in a game one week. He texted me. The snake is watered and fed. Gotcha. Brah. But that transition of time does allow for some character development if you want to just say, like, hey, this happens over the time period. Maybe you want to explore a sad point in your character's life, or maybe you want to make your character start transforming into a more angry or aggressive person. So they got divorced over this month period.
Yes, and one thing I would point out there too. So in White Wolf, there at the end of a game session, you can spend experience.
Yes,
it's a little bit different in D&D because you get experience at the end of a session. What I would suggest if you are going to do this with D&D is in the small story, tally your XP, but don't allow level ups until after the event has taken place.
Absolutely,
because you can use the level up as a transition event into the next story. Meaning that your character grew from information and events that happened in the previous story that allow them to carry that experience into the next story.
Yep, and maybe during that time they also worked to develop that skill. Like, for example, they got their clock cleaned in the last game, so they're like, oh man, I really need to level up my constitution there. So when experiences, or with D&D it's a little bit harder because, like, you just go up levels.
Well, so that's why I say instead of running tally your experience, tally it in the context of the game you are running, and then add it as a lump sum at the end of the game. Meaning that your levels up after the game is completed.
I like that a lot.
That would be my suggestion if I were running this type of format in a D&D setting. Because you don't want your player to suddenly become more powerful than your villain. It basically keeps your players in check in that moment. It also makes it so the players can't develop skills that innately make them better in the situation. Okay?
I hate that.
It's really tough as a GM. It's probably the thing that would ruin your... Because most of these games are going to be episodic and very compact, and they're going to be well thought up and well planned. And so if one of your if let's say you speak French, and then after a game session your player buys the ability to speak French, okay, it's not feasible. Okay, 2,
what, you can't learn French overnight?
Sorry, he doesn't have the Rosetta Stone. He can't learn French overnight.
Hey, the State Department uses that.
Okay,
according to the infomercial.
But and then two, it ruins your story, because if none of the players spoke French prior to the game, okay, it makes it really hard if they're in a setting where most people speak French, okay. So, like, you don't want to give your players an innate advantage there. You always want to kind of keep them at the disadvantage they came in with, okay, which is important. Okay, it's you're not trying to screw over your players. You're trying to make the game challenging to them within the context of the game.
You're maintaining the power balance.
Yes, you're maintaining the power balance, which is why I would suggest that no matter what you do experience-wise, do not allow expenditures or the level up until the completion of the game.
And some of that for D&D, honestly, our players who enjoy maybe the more historic games, it's a really great at the end of the game, because, I've been in games where I bought a new sword and I wanted a custom. Guy made it in like a day. No, it takes forever to make a sword. I've watched the videos.
Watch your players kind of light up a little bit. I feel like that's something that, since it was a self-imposed rule that we did to do that in White Wolf, which was do not buy skills in the moment and do it between the games. And I think that by doing it that way, it showed the growth of the character from the previous game, which meant I needed these skills, so I invested the time to learn them before my next investigation. Okay.
Yeah, and it really brings a human element to it. It brings more realism to the game, which, it's less of a leap of faith. It just brings that realism in.
Yeah, so that's how I would transition between the two of them. You need to have a passage of time, whether it be a day, whether it be 30 days. Okay, so if you want to have your next game take place in the winter, you can have a long passage of time and let somebody else fill in the blanks. The good thing about a long passage of time in a collaborative game is somebody could tell a retroactive story between them, fill in the gap. Okay, Jared spoke about how you're going to leave a lot of holes when you collaborative storytell. Well, you can fill in the gaps anywhere along the way.
Yep. And honestly, I've loved the passage of time when we have particularly engaged in that, because I like to use weather. Even though it can't rain every day, I did learn that lesson the hard way.
But some games thematically work better in the winter.
It works. I mean, like, you couldn't have done the Wintergo in the summer. It's literally a winter spirit.
It's a winter spirit. It consumes in the winter. It's
conflict boils. If you're setting a game of a city on edge, conflict boils in the summer, because not everyone in this world has air conditioning.
And then the only other thing that I want to mention with the passage of time is, if you're going to accelerate time far into the future, like a season, okay, make sure the other players are okay with that. Because if somebody wants to tell a game in the summer and you're up next to tell a game in the winter, it doesn't make sense for you to go ahead of the person who wants to tell the game in the summer.
Let that other person go first, because they and this is probably a lot of the bulk of our communication, is like setting up timelines. Now, please remember to try to keep those timelines organized. Like, we literally create a list of dates. I keep track of all the dates of all the games.
Timelines are super important within a collaborative game. Ours is obviously a modern day. So, if we start on a Friday, the 27th, okay, we move and we go to, Thursday the next week, and so that's what, the third of the next month or whatever. You want to know how long that game spanned, because you also want to know dates of important events in that game. That helps players in the shared toolbox to be able to call back to events. Okay, what if the players did something that was potentially illegal one of those days, and you wanted to bring it back up in a future game? You'd want to know the date and the events that happened there. Okay, you don't need to know every detail, because it can be a little ambiguous. Memory is that way, but you
especially mine.
You certainly want the date, so you can call to the date.
And I mean, it's just, timelines are so important. They're so important to creating a good collaborative game. Now, the nice thing is with SciFi, You have a little bit more leeway because, like I talked about in the last podcast, different planets, this is an ice world. This is a desert world. This is a yada yada world. So you don't have to worry about so much. But timelines are nice because, for example, if you look at Firefly, it didn't take a day to get from one planet to the other. It took like a month, and not a lot happens in that month. But as Aaron spoke about earlier, the skill expenditure really shows. It shows like, oh, during this time my character was practicing his jujitsu, and became a martial arts expert in a month.
Yeah, I mean, let your creative juices flow as the GM. If you feel like that's too much, scale back.
Scale it way back. No one's becoming a jiu-jitsu master in a month.
Maybe you're a savant.
Touche, sir. Touche.
Maybe you just pick it up really good.
I'm really great at that.
That was me doing a throw there, by the way. Since podcasts aren't visual.
And no, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think we have any plans to start taping like Joe Rogan does. My face is not meant for television.
Tell you what, if we start hitting close to 100 listeners an episode and it's demanded, we will potentially consider thinking about it.
I don't think anyone wants to see this mug.
Again, I said 100 listeners an episode. Potentially consider thinking about it.
You know how they say in every relationship there's a reacher, and then there's a reacher, and then there's like a settler. Yeah, my wife's the settler. She totally settled. She's like, this guy, he makes me laugh.
He's a good guy.
He's a good guy. Makes me laugh. Keeps the house super clean. Super clean. But no, transitioning in the game is good, and it's. So, when it comes down to all the advice that we can give you, really it comes down to good communication, and establishing an organizational structure that you all can follow, having those talks, keeping everything prepared, and really those are some of the keys to success. So, we've gone over the theme, how to embrace it. We've gone over. How to keep it organized. We've gone over how to transition. So, really what it's up to you is to create the culture within your game, with your players. You might have players that are a little wary of storytelling. Encourage them to maybe do a one-shot game or 1-2-shot game. It's about creating the culture and that welcoming culture. Always self-assess, when you feel yourself like, oh man, he's tearing apart my city of Kazubal. He's tearing it apart. Self-assess. Is he really tearing it apart, or is he building up something new that you just hadn't planned for? And then take a deep breath and assess.
Again, remember the big rule, which is don't retcon, especially in this scenario.
Don't.
In shared storytelling, don't retcon. Add. Build. If there's one suggestion I mentioned in the last podcast about this, but be additive to stuff. Do not subtract. So the only people who should subtract from the world would be the one who brought it into existence.
Yes. So if like Aaron wanted to pull something away from the detective series, he is more than he's the one who brought this into existence. It's his baby. We all just play with it.
Yeah. So I'm not going to kill George Yassin. Jared created George Yassin.
If he killed him, that would be an interesting plotline.
Jared has free reign on George Yassin. I can give George Yassin a whole bunch of stuff. I can make George Yassin do a whole bunch of shit. Okay? Because Jared let George Yassin exist in the world.
Yep.
But I will let Jared end George Yassin in the world.
Like I said, it might be a shocking day to find out like George Yassin got shot in the back. I'm like, fuck, where are my plans? But if you want to figure out how to do that, I think we have an entire episode dedicated to how to dance.
How to dance, yes. If you do, typically you're trying to dance with the players. You don't want to dance with the other GMs.
No, not so much. that gets a little difficult.
That's a whole different level of how to dance.
Really, it's about communication, fostering that culture of creativity, encourage each other, foster each other's growth. As Aaron said in the last one, there is no. There's only yes, and as Aaron just said, we build. We don't tear things down. It takes me back to, all the ideas and how you can just foster that creativity in each other. And really that's what collaborative storytelling is about, is about creating such a cool world with one another and being there with your friends to build it.
I think that's very poetic. I would suggest you try it out. Give it a shot.
Give it a shot.
If you guys are bored of telling the same stories over and over again, which is kind of how we got into it.
Yeah.
Give it a shot. Give it a shot. If you feel really confident with the rules, give it a shot. If you're brand new to the game, get confident with the game and then give it a shot. So, anyways, if you'd got anything else that you'd like to add, Jared?
No, I'm very satisfied. Again, I just encourage all storytellers, really give this a shot. I've fallen in love with it.
I've been very happy with it since we got the rules together. But if you as the listeners would like to chime in on the subject or give us suggestions on an episode topic, levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com. Otherwise, rate, subscribe, review, tell your friend, tell your players at the table because you want to get them involved in collaborative storytelling. And for Jared, I'm Aaron. Have a good week, guys.
Have a great week, everyone.